We have one of the most well-known authors and trainers in the world of chess, Jacob Aagaard. We would like to know from you, how was your process during creation as an author of the Grandmaster Preparation series?
It's sort of a long story. So it started with me meeting Boris Gelfand a few times, having a few conversations, once in 2005, once at the Olympiad in 2008. And in 2009, we had rooms next to each other, which sort of, there was like a lounge between them at a rapid tournament in Rome. And the day before the tournament, there was some press conference, and I showed him some positions later, and we had dinner, and he sort of there was something he didn't solve, and he was very interested. The position is from my game against Jonathan Rowson, which is in one of the chapters in Thinking Inside the Box, the front page. A very interesting position. And so he didn't solve that, and he was sort of a little bit interested. So I said, I have this file of positions, which later became Quality Chess Puzzle Book. It has John's name on the cover, but I was very involved in the book. And I sent them to him, and then he sent back after a week or something like, okay, I tried and I failed to solve the first 10 correctly, so I think I need to take this seriously. And then 2 months later, he went and won the World Cup. And came another email, send more files. So I started to collect files for him, and so I had more and more files. Then around 2011, we had minor cash flow problems for Quality Chess, sort of like in the horizon. And I said, okay, I have some material here. I can very quickly make a book. We don't have to pay any authors. And so I made the book called Calculation. So this is a shameless dig for your money. And it won, I think, ACP Book of the Year, and it's by far my best-selling book. I think it's now 5th print, 3rd edition, something like this, and still going strong. Signed copies available from ChessBase India. And okay, we just continued the series. After that, with material from the training with Boris, and it became these 5 books. So it's Calculation, Positional Play, Strategic Play, Attack and Defense, and Endgame Play. And if you do want a reading order, I would put Thinking Inside the Box first, and then these 5 books in the order I just mentioned, which is also the order of publication. But like, chess books can't hurt you. If you read them in the order of your interest, that's probably how you're going to get most out of them. Don't think that there's some magic order where you have to read it. Everything will make an impression on you, and if you work seriously at it, if you try hard, everything will be beneficial. Anyway, so I then did these 5 books, and they were quite successful. And then I wanted to do this book, which was sort of a combination of my best games, my most important ideas, and experiences from chess. It was literally all over the place, but still much better structure than I make it sound. But I had some sort of anxiety about the quality of the book, and I wanted it to be really, really good. And I had problems finishing it, so I had this idea, it was an absolutely crazy idea, that if I put enough pressure on myself, I would finish the book. So I contacted Sagar and Peter, which is actually in the background here, and we planned a series book tour of all of Asia.
Why don't I, after I go to India, go to the rest of Asia? I could go to, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Hong Kong, Manila, Bangkok, Jakarta, Tehran, something like that. Would that work for you?
Yeah, whatever.
Great. Great, we'll say that. See you later, bye-bye.
So Peter even produced lots of t-shirts with Thinking Inside the Box on the back. So we went, Amruta, Sagar and Peter, lots of places. And I didn't finish the book. So we went on book tour without the book, which sort of is a perfect short form explanation of how that tour went. And you can read all about it on ChessBase India's website. It was in 2017. And you can see lots of photos from the tour in the book, because I finished it when I came home, but now I had all these great photos to put in it. So that's sort of the whole story of Grandmaster Preparation and how it came about, and what it was for, and yeah, and a bit of the creation process as well.
As much as it sounds great, we would also like to know what rating segment does it specifically cater to, and how would you advise players to self-learn or self-train from these books?
So if we're in Europe or in America, more Europe, where every game more or less is rated, I would say the books start around 1900, 2000, and then they go to the very top. You know, we know that the best players have all worked with them. But when it's India, like I had a student who played a tournament like a month ago, an Indian, around 2000 rated. So in the first round he has draw with 1300 rated, and then later in the tournament he has plus score against title players. Like, so you asked me about the rating in India. It doesn't make sense. The other night I was ill, I was tired, it was the last blitz game of the night, it had been 7 days lecture. Like, let me just get any more excuses. I'm jet lag was probably not finished, and beside that my mind was elsewhere. Anyway, I blundered a pawn in a blitz game to a little boy from Guwahati, and I thought, okay, probably his level is like FIDE 2100. But he's Indian, so I thought maybe he's 1700 rated, because normally that's the margin of error. 1100. So I blundered a pawn, okay, and I'm worse, and I never had a chance. Just never had a chance against 1100. Like 1100 in Europe, I can blunder whatever I want, and as many of them as I want. I will not lose. You know, here I had no chance. So when you ask like this, I would say it really depends, and I think people have to use their sort of their intelligence, and probably talking something like Lead Chess rating or chess.com rating makes more sense in India than talk about FIDE rating. But I want to point out, and let me get the right one here. Where are we? One, boost, build up your chess. So I do recommend this series as the one leading up to mine, very, very warmly. And if you're not a very strong tournament player, I know you can be a strong tournament player in India and be rated 1500. Like, so you have to use your own intelligence. But if let's say you're 1800 online or something like that, then this series here, there's 10 books, we can say here. They are all, like, they have an order. Orange first, there's 4 of them. Then it's the green ones, if I'm right. No, it's the blue, then green, right? Yeah, so it's sort of a mess, but all the orange, all the blue, all the greens. That's the reading order for these books. And in the German version, he had also some guess of this rating, this rating, this rating. And the last one was up to 1900, 1800, or 2100. I don't remember, because it was so incredibly wrong that we took it out. Like, the German books are called up to 15, 18, 2100, I think it is. And the last one, I had GMs solve some of the exercises, and okay, they scored 70, 80%. But it's like up to 2100, and it's like Ganguly and Brunello, you know, these guys solving. And yeah, they scored well, but not easy and not 100%. So it's these are still quite challenging books and very, very valuable books. And if you want a good chess education, you should know what's in these books. I should mention also that I'm also the co-writer of these books. You would never know it if you look at the front. And people, they never read the introduction. They don't see on page 1 there's my name, and my name is on the back also. Not that I especially mind, but it's just when you're asking about my books, and then I also wrote these ones, and I think they were quite decent.
I think, while you have authored and co-authored so many of your books, if you would want to tell us, creating which one was the most fun and which one was the most challenging, personally for you?
Most fun? Well, I think creating the pictures from thinking inside the box was probably the most fun. I really enjoyed that. I'm generally very excited about the books I do, but the most difficult by far, and it's, what would you guess, Saga? What do you think? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking a matter of Endgame technique, because it's 896 pages. Last 2 pages blank, don't count. So still clearly less than 900 pages.
I know which one.
Yeah.
Chess from scratch.
Well, still working. But no, the most difficult one was Endgame Labyrinth, which is out recently, and I think here we sold out instantly, like on day 2. It was sold out, and we, after this interview, we'll sit down and make an order, and more copies are coming. So if anyone wants it, it will come. But this was by far the most difficult book. So we went through more or less all recorded in-game studies, selected the best one, find the right point to cut off stuff that was not interesting, so you find a moment where you can actually solve from. And then we check them all carefully. And because they're collected over decades, in the PGN format, everything is wrong more or less in it. So every line is wrong, every annotation is wrong. Like, it's just small things, like it says equal when it should be winning, winning when it should be equal, and so on. And we fixed everything, and we just went through it again and again and again and again. And I have said a few times, and I know this is very contentious, this may be the first chess book without any mistakes in it. So, I've been challenged twice. First, I've been challenged by my co-author, Stefan Nielsen, who's the current world champion in composition. And he says that it says on the back cover that his football team is a mid-level team. And he says, no, it's definitely a great team. And I have to instruct the beginning author that when I say there's no mistakes inside the book, he cannot mention something on the outside of the book. The other one was someone who came up with one position, which is the front position in the chapter on theoretical endgames. And there is a position which ends with 2 knights versus pawn, the Trotsky line. And it wins in like 50-something moves. But FIDE rule says after 50 moves it's draw. So he said, here's the mistake. But I looked up FIDE's rules for composition, and 50-move rule does not apply in composition. So I didn't know before, of course, but so far nobody found a mistake. I think I found a mistake, but it's like a mistake, a line that ends without evaluation. So it's not. It is technically a mistake, but it's not a chess mistake. I'm sure there's a typo somewhere as well. But that book was thousands of hours. We started like 5-6 years ago. It was just totally destroyed by this project. I don't want to do this again. No, this is. Now I will write simple middle game books for average players. Like the pieces go here, 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 fix the weaknesses, bring in the pieces, attack the king. The simple stuff there. This was my future.
Speaking of simple and fundamental moves and books that you're talking about, some of the fundamentals and the broad topics that people cover in chess is calculation, positional play, attack, and defense. And it has been great that each of these topics have been covered in your series and in your books. So how does one train calculation as a player?
I think the most important thing is to come to the camp starting on Thursday in Mumbai. The second most important thing is to buy a book, and let me just go and get it here. This is an absolutely fantastic book, which is called Grandmaster Training Camp Calculation by Sam Shanklin. And anyone who liked my books in general will absolutely love this one. Yes, I published it, but I'm also sort of silent co-writer. Here I didn't put my name on the back cover. I had the chance, but chose not to. I selected the positions. Sam solved them, and it's not a secret. It says so inside. But having the chance to sit together with a top player and compare your solution, your thinking to his, see that he sees some things but not everything, but he's able to make decisions based on this, I think is very valuable for a lot of players. I think another thing that's really valuable for training calculation, just to give a few small hints here, is to write down solutions. So if you write down your solutions, you know whether or not you saw something. When I was young, I did everything wrong. Like I would solve a position, not really being controlled, then look at the solution and think, yeah, I think I saw that, or no, I would have seen that, which is not good calculation. Another little training tip is look at the position, like turn it away or whatever, however you want to do it, and put it on the board. And then go back and check if you have the right position. This little trick to just always do a little visualization training. It doesn't have to be much. You can do more. There's a lot of ways to do that, but that's a little trick that I try to get all my students to do.
I think that's a great trick to visualize and then start.
It's very simple.
Yes.
You can also have more advanced ones, which is you take games. I especially like really old games from Chess Informant, especially if it's not annotated by the players, by a local Serbian guy who had done it very quickly and doesn't know what's happening. So you can go through it blindfold, and then you can see the annotations, and you can sort of try to find out blindfold where the guy is wrong. So I remember there was a game between Kurt Hansen and Bent Larsen from their match in 85, 86. That was annotated in Chess Informant, and at some point there was like simple background thing, like it's a queen on f5, double rooks in the e file for black, rook on f1, rook on b1, and black could have played queen takes b1. You'll put the diagram in the video for sure. And in Chess Informant it wasn't mentioned at all. So, and I knew this because when I was a little child I had televised this match, and Bent was explaining, this is the only place in the game where I played really badly. Here I could have just done this. But looking at these old things, simply reading them, you can also just follow books in your mind. Another book which is very interesting for this kind of training is Alexei Shirov's Fire on Board, the first one, because he has so advanced and interesting lines. Now we're talking for very strong players. But to follow them and try to see if you can find alternatives and try to see if the variations are right and wrong. And then you can check with engines afterwards. You can have a lot of fun experience out of that. But of course the main thing is to order my books from the ChessBase India bookstore.
Yes, and I would
only a very few signed copies.
Yes, very few signed copies that you can get exclusively with us. And one of the last questions that I would want to put forth, that is something that a lot of players, especially the young ones, they have, is what, according to you, like how is strategic play different from positional play? And while there are a lot of tools that people can easily access when it comes to training in strategy or in tactics as coaches or as players, how do you think is the right way to go about when it comes to positional?
My principle for training is generally to go after low-hanging fruit. Solve simple problems first, which means that for most players it's always tactics, not calculation, but simple tactics. And I want to just take the moment to say that the most important thing about solving simple tactics is don't spend too much time on it. Like a minute, 2 minutes, and then see if you're right, and if you're wrong, it doesn't matter. You don't want to sit for 20, 30, 40 minutes trying to solve simple tactics, because you're not training a calculation skill at this time, at this level. You're training patterns, so you need to see a lot of positions. But some engagement is necessary to really remember things. You cannot just go through them and have a good impression of them. Positional play is the simple harmony between pieces and pawns, while strategy is planning. It's how to make greater changes, and often people don't understand the difference, and many people act as if there's no difference. And we did publish books on Karpov. I think we call it his best strategic wins, and we are entirely aware that the guy is not a very strategic player. He's a very positional player, but it just sounded better. And we admit the fraud. We're not sorry. We have your money. There's nothing you can do now. So, but the important thing here is to sort of think that strategy, don't worry too much about it. Unless you're Grandmaster level, this is not something that makes sense to work on. Work on simple positional things. Now, my book Strategic Play, it does make sense. It is much more accessible than deep strategic things. I also think the Gelfand books, especially the first two, are very good for strategic considerations. By the way, I think the most strategic players is like a straight line, is Rubinstein, Botvinnik, Korchnoi, and Gelfand. They're very strategic. But also another thing is an attack. You could say, why is attack different from calculation? What are the two things? Well, when you're playing attack and you're making attacking decisions, normally you are not able to calculate to a clear conclusion. So you have to use something else to guide you, and these will be the strategic principles of attack, which is described in Attacking Manual, Attack and Defense, and also in the forthcoming book, A Friendly Guide to Attack in Chess, and in the camp we just finished. While in calculation, you're trying to get to a clear end result. But strategy is not just like long-term pawn structures and going into a technical conclusion of game. There's also dynamic solutions to strategic problems, and they are normally attack. So you wouldn't say that an attack is positional play, but it's definitely strategic play. So everything in most things in life, they have sort of a gray zone between things. So like, am I old or am I middle-aged? Well, I'm still in the gray zone, getting more and more gray as into the gray zone as it goes, and then soon I'll be in white, and then there will be no arguing that I'm middle-aged anymore. We have opening, middle game, end game, and you can say late middle game, early end game. You have all these decisions. Then you have middle games without queens, where there's still many pieces. Is it an end game? Not really, because end game elements are not really there. But then sometimes you have stalemate, or you have Zugzwang early in the game, which is an end game thing. And nothing is ever really absolute in that way. And the same thing with positional and strategic things. I always like the example of Ivan Chuganand, 1992. I think it's from the match, where Ivan Chuki played knight d5 and knight 6 f6 and gf6, which looks anti-positional because it's double pawn and so on. But you see long-term strategically, also after exchanging the good bishop, he actually removes the vital defender from the white position. It comes very naturally, and it was not so revolutionary actually. It was not so difficult to see that he will end up with connected pass pawns in the center, while white has an h and c pawn, which are not very useful. And for me, this is a very clear example of strategy. It's like, yeah, he's an intelligent guy, he understands this is not basic positional play, but long term, his anti-positional play, which I would prefer to call strategic decisions, they end in a very positional advantage of connected double pass pawns. There was maybe some drawing chances after that, but in practical play it didn't really matter. It's it's one of the greatest games of all time, of course, but it's also one of the simplest examples of saying why is positional and strategic things different. Now, you could argue some positional things you achieve by doing things like bishop c4, gf6, and so on. And it's very interesting. But reality is that the way people have described it, Anand described himself, John Watson and other people who wrote about it, definitely say that this is anti-positional and this is people's expression. And in the end, we use all these words to describe how humans experience what's happening on the board. And it's not something that is in the actual rules of chess.
Thank you so much for all the elaborate answers and also for all the insights that you have given. I think it was a very fun story of how the series came across. And thank you so much.
Definitely the longest 5 minutes of your life.
Yes. Not. I think it's the most interesting 5 minutes that we have had. Thank you.
Thank you very much.